All right, I think we are live. Actually, give me 1 second. Does that light look good? That light might be too much. That's fine. Who gives a shit? Hello and welcome to Film Thoughts with Nathaniel Molnar. I am your aforementioned host, Nathaniel Molnar, and this is the laid back casual show where I'm just talking about whatever is on my mind in the world of film and movies. And yeah, so, okay, here's the thing. Film Thoughts is usually Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, I had to work today. I don't normally work on Thursdays, but today I had to work. So I had said no Film Thoughts for today. We're just going to go ahead and skip it for today. But there was some movie news that came out, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I want to talk about some Batman. I want to talk about some Suicide Squad. I never usually want to talk about Suicide Squad, but today I do. So I was like, you know what? Let's just do a live show after I get home from work. So that's why the show is at 9 o'clock today, as opposed to the usual 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. So let's get right into it, and let's talk about a couple of things that came out today. First of all, Alita Battle Angel is coming out. It's directed by Robert Rodriguez, who, of course, he did Sin City. It seems like that's the only good thing he's done because on all the trailers and everything, every time a new Robert Rodriguez trailer movie comes out, they always keep saying the guy who brought you Sin City. That was 2005. You don't have anything new to say about that. You don't have any new projects to label him from. Besides the point. Produced by James Cameron. Now this movie has been in development hell for like I think over a decade or something like that. James Cameron was going to direct it himself, but he's been too busy in Blue World doing Avatar movies, 4 fucking Avatar movies. But so, oh, sorry about that. If there was any noise when I hit the mic there, not very professional of me. But where was I going with that? So Cameron was going to direct. He's caught up in Avatar, so he's not going to direct. So Robert Rodriguez directed it, and I have not been a fan of the trailers thus far. I thought it just looked like a big bloated CGI mess. I didn't think it looked good. First of all, I understand that in the source material, the main lead protagonist, she has the large eyes or whatever. Now, I think this is either like a manga or an anime. I don't know which one. But regardless, when the character is drawn with larger eyes, it probably works. In a live action movie with CGI eyes like that, it looks terrible. They should have just not done the eyes. They should have just foregone that or whatever because it just does not look good. It feels unnerving and it just looks weird and immediately takes me out of the movie every time I watch it, the trailer. So the marketing I've not been on board with. I love science fiction, and of course, whenever any movie's coming out or any big science fiction film or anything like that, I'm going to be rooting for it, and I want it to be awesome. But this one does not look good. Then there was a bit of time where it seemed like maybe it could be good. Maybe it could be because there was a screening like maybe a few weeks ago, and a bunch of critics saw it, and a lot of people were coming out saying that it was really good. Not just really good, excellent, mind blowing, phenomenal. These were the kinds of words being used about this film. And so it seems like maybe Alita Battle Angel suffered from the Edge of Tomorrow syndrome of terrible trailers for a really great movie. Maybe that could be the case. But doesn't seem like that is because right now, Alita Battle Angel has its Rotten Tomatoes score. With 15 reviews, it is sitting rotten at 33%. And I can't say that this is too surprising. I mean, taking aside the period of time where it seemed like it could be good from the some of the response coming out of a screening, putting that aside, it's just never looked good. It's never looked good. I it just never there was nothing appealing about it. It just looked like big giant CGI bloated mess. And aside from that little cluster of critics and fans who saw it and were raving about it, that aside, nothing has made me think that this could be good. And so a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes, is not all surprising. Now, it is important to know that there are only 15 reviews currently, or last I checked, there were only 15 reviews. So, and usually Rotten Tomatoes, when it's all said and done, has about 200 to 250 reviews per movie. So anything could happen. For all we know, this ends up in 60s or 70s. The greatest case of the fluctuation of a Rotten Tomatoes meter was when the third Triple X movie was coming out. Triple X Return of Xander Cage. The reviews came out and it had like 10 or 15 reviews around what Alita Battle Angel has right now. And it was in the high 90s. It was like 95, 96, right around there. And I remember I looked at that and I was like, wow, maybe this Xander Cage movie is pretty good. And then all the reviews came in and it dropped to about 40 or 30. I don't know exactly where it is right now. And the movie's not good. So you never know with, especially when it's low numbers for the amount of reviews out there. You never know where that number's going to go. A lot of times it stays within the margin of where it is originally. If it starts out rotten in the 30s, more likely than not, it will still be rotten by the time all 250 reviews are out. But that's not always a certainty. That's not always definitive. For all we know, Alita Battle Angel could end up in the 60s or 70s. But is it likely? No, I don't think it's likely. I think this is probably going to end up staying rotten. It could maybe get up into like the high 50s or something like that, which means that, it's just barely rotten, but still rotten. But I would not be surprised if it stuck around in the 30s or 40s for once we get all the reviews in. So anyways, I just thought that was interesting that we have our some of our first reviews for Alita Battle Angel. I'm just going to look at the monitor real quick. That's not too dark, is it? I think that's fine. We're going to leave it as is. Usually, usually I have a light on over there, but I forgot to turn it on, and I don't want to interrupt the stream in order to turn it on, but that's completely fine. You're just going to pretend like none of that happened, and I'm just going to go on with the live stream as if nothing ever happened. Moving on. So, we have upon us coming out this summer. I forget the release date, but it's in the summer. I know that. We have Hobbs and Shaw coming off, or Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. Not a great title. Why are they presenting it? It doesn't make any sense. I think that's a stupid title. Anyways, Hobbs and Shaw is coming out. They should have just never called it Hobbs and Shaw because nobody knows. When you hear Hobbs and Shaw, you never think of. When I hear Hobbs, I think Calvin and Hobbs. I don't think of Dwayne Johnson from fucking Fast and Furious. They shouldn't have called it Hobbs and Shaw to begin with. Anyways, that's a side tangent. So we know Hobbs and Shaw is coming out this summer, which is, of course, the first of a few planned spin-offs for Fast and Furious. This has Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham. They're reprising their roles from the previous films. And we know this movie's coming out. First of all, tiny news. The first trailer for Hobbs and Shaw drops tomorrow on Friday. I'm interested in this movie. It wasn't in my top 10 most anticipated films of the year or anything like that, but I'm definitely interested in this movie. I've liked the past few Fast and Furious movies. I think they've gone in a good direction with this series, especially with Dwayne Johnson. And I really like, I wasn't a huge fan of the Fate of the Furious, the last one, but one of the best parts was the camaraderie or lack thereof in the back and forth between Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham. And so for them to have their own movie, I think there's a lot of potential. And of course, it's directed by David Leitch, who did Deadpool 2, he did Atomic Blonde, and he co-directed the first John Wick. So I think there's a lot of potential for this movie. And so I'm excited to see a trailer and see what they're going with this film. So anyways, trailer coming on Friday. But we also found out Dwayne Johnson is not going to be in the next Fast and Furious movie. Now, we've known that this was a possibility for some time because there's been all these reports about Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel clashing on set of the Fast and Furious movies. In the last one, they purposely structured the film so that Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson wouldn't have to film any scenes together. Even when the characters were in the same scene, they did not film the scenes together because apparently the two can't even be on set together. And so we've known that with this spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw coming, that Dwayne Johnson is putting all of his time and energy in, it did not seem likely that Dwayne Johnson was actually going to be in Fast and Furious 9. And now we know for sure that he will not be in that film. This is disappointing because Dwayne Johnson is one of my, if not my definitive favorite part of these Fast and Furious movies. I have not seen the previous Fast and Furious movies 1 through 4. I only started with 5 because apparently that's when they started to get good. And Fast 5 is fantastic. That's a great movie. Dwayne Johnson completely revitalized this franchise. He took it from pretty much being dead to being a $1.5 billion franchise, which is how much the seventh one made. So he completely came in and just turned things around with this series. And his character is so good, and his dynamic with all the other characters is so great in this series. Now, I think I would be more upset that we aren't getting Dwayne Johnson in Fast and Furious 9 if we weren't getting the spinoff. The fact that we're going to be getting the spinoff like a year or two before Fast and Furious 9 comes out, I can live with it. If the spinoff comes out and it delivers and it's great and we all love it and we all get our fix of Fast and Furious Dwayne Johnson, if we get our fix of that with this spinoff, then I'll be more okay with him not being in Fast and Furious 9. It's still disappointing. If all things being equal, I would rather he be in the film. But if he's not going to be in the film, I'm glad we're at least getting this spinoff with him. Hopefully, they figure out a way to bring him in for Fast and Furious 10, which I think at that point just stop the franchise there because it's kind of maybe just do all spin-offs after that. That might be interesting. Anyways, moving right along, let's get into what this stream's all about, the titular part, of this live stream of this show. DC announced a couple of release dates for their movies, one of which is a pretty big one. Matt Reeves' The Batman, which has been in the works for a very, very long time. Matt Reeves has been attached to this as the director because originally The Batman was Ben Affleck's movie. He was going to be starring in it as Batman. He was writing it. He was directing it. He was producing it. He was all involved in this film. And then he pretty much dropped out of it. He made up some bullshit excuse as to why he wasn't going to be directing it. But, excuse me, but he left the film. And it pretty much seemed like all but certain that Ben Affleck wasn't even going to star in the movie. Matt Reeves, who, of course, he did Cloverfield. He did the last two Planet of the Apes films, Dawn and War, which he did a phenomenal job with those movies. Matt Reeves came in and he was going to be directing the Batman. And of course, it was always up in the air as to whether or not Ben Affleck would actually be returning, although it did not seem likely at all. And so it's just been sitting in limbo for so long. I remember originally they said that the Batman was going to be coming out this year in 2019. And now it's 2019 and they were no closer to putting out the movie at all. Well, now we're actually a little bit of a step closer to getting that Batman movie because DC announced, hey, guess what? The Batman is coming. I believe the release date is June 25th, 2021. Yay! Oh, by the way, Ben Affleck is definitely out. I mean, that's not too much of a shock because we all pretty much knew Ben Affleck wasn't going to be in this movie. We pretty much knew that. And of course, they kind of confirmed what we also already knew, which was that they were trying to go for a younger Bruce Wayne Batman than what the Ben Affleck character was. Because the Ben Affleck character that we met in Batman v Superman, which carried over into Justice League, that was a Batman who had already been Batman for like 20 years. And he was like mid 40s or whatever, and he had kind of like had enough of that shit. They're going to be focusing on a new Batman, a younger Batman. And I think ultimately this is for the best. I would have loved to see Ben Affleck again as Batman because personally, I think Ben Affleck is probably the best Batman we've had. I really liked his take on the character. I'm not a huge fan of the movie Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, but I think Ben Affleck as Batman was probably the single best part of that movie. I thought he crushed it. And I thought they just took the character and went in a new direction that we had never seen before, a far darker version than the ones that we got in the Dark Knight movies, which is surprising considering how dark those movies are. It's literally in the title. But we got a very different kind of Batman with Ben Affleck's take on the character. And I really liked it. And I wish we had gotten a little bit more of that with Ben Affleck. But Ben Affleck's out, and now we got to move on. And they're going to go for a younger Batman. Hopefully, they're looking at maybe doing like a trilogy of these. And so they want someone who's in there for the long haul. Again, makes sense. I still wish we could have gotten more Ben Affleck, but I understand why we can't. And now we got to find a new actor. I put up on the Movie Paradise's Instagram account a poll. We use, if you're not sure, follow us on Instagram at Movie Paradise 99. Every day I do question of the day in the story of on the Instagram story. And I ask different questions, and it's usually a poll. Sometimes it's a question, just to get a some sort of answer from you guys as to what you think about a certain issue related to the film industry. And today's question was, who do you think should play, or rather, who should replace Ben Affleck in playing Bruce Wayne / Batman? And we had a couple of people say, someone said John Hamm, which I would like the idea of John Hamm, though I think they are going for a younger actor. They're not going for someone John Hamm's age, because I think he's about the same age, if not just slightly younger than Ben Affleck. So I don't think they would go for someone like him. Someone suggested Timothy Chalamet, which I think is too young. Maybe if they were going like had a flashback scene to like a younger Bruce Wayne or something, he might be good for that. But as actual Batman, he's too young. Someone suggested Armie Hammer, which is my personal pick. Well, actually, my personal pick is I'd like for them to go for an unknown. I want someone we don't know about, someone who's been scouted for years, who hasn't had a big break or maybe had a few tiny roles in something. I want an unknown for this role. Now, I'll be perfectly happy, or hopefully perfectly happy, with whoever they put in the role. The Ben Affleck role, when we were waiting to hear who was going to be cast as Bruce Wayne / Batman and Batman v Superman, no one was thinking Ben Affleck. And then Ben Affleck came out and they said, hey, Ben Affleck's going to be playing the character. A lot of people didn't like it. Immediately, I loved it. It was a choice that I had not even considered, but I absolutely thought it was perfect. The first second I heard it, I was like, there we go. That's Bruce Wayne, and I'm sure he can pull off Batman. And I'm hoping for something similar with this casting. I'm going to try to like not even think about who would I like to play, because then I think I'm setting it up for disappointment. And a lot of my choices go for maybe a 40s Batman. Like Ryan Gosling is like mid 30s, early 40s, something like that. I don't think he would ever do the role. He's one of my picks. I would love Carl Urban. I would love Oscar Isaac. I would love Armie Hammer, although he is under 40, so I think he could be a possible candidate. I have a lot of people who I think would be very good for the role, but I don't know what kind of movie Matt Reeves is telling. I don't know who would be a good fit for his specific version. And most likely, similar to what happened with Ben Affleck, the person that we think would be perfect for the role is not going to be cast, and they're going to go with someone no one had even thought of before, or we never even got wind of the person could be a potential candidate. So I'm just not even really going to think about it. I'm just going to wait until they announce who's going to be, and it's probably not even going to be for another year or so that we'll find out who's playing Batman. I'm just going to wait and see who they tell us, and hopefully it's another great pick. And even if it's someone that we're like, really? That person is Batman? Really? People doubted Christian Bale when they announced him. And of course, people doubted Ben Affleck. People doubted Michael Keaton. So in fact, if people didn't doubt this pick of Batman, they would be going against the grain of what we've gotten before. Every single Batman pick, excuse me, every single Batman pick we've gotten thus far, people have said, really? That person? That's going to suck. That makes no sense. That's terrible. They should have gotten someone else, blah, 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 blah. And it's turned out to be perfect. So I'm sure we'll get a pick that everyone's going to hate, and it's going to end up being awesome. Anyway, as for this movie actually coming out summer of 2021, I'm under the philosophy of the Batman has been in pre-production hell for so long. It's been put off. It's been delayed. It's been talked about, but never actually going anywhere for a long time. I will not believe this movie is actually coming out until I can actually walk up to the ticket booth at the movie theater and say, hi, I'd like one ticket to the Batman, please. Until I can do that, I will not believe this movie is actually coming out because they put it off for so long. It's been in development hell for so long. I just don't see it. All right, let me put it this way. I think they floated around 2019 as a year. I don't believe it had a full release date beforehand. This is new for them. If maybe they did have a release date and I'm not thinking of it, but I thought they only had said it's going to come out around 2019. I don't think they've had a release date before, a full release date. So them coming out with this full release date, it does kind of show something new that we haven't gotten in terms of the development. Will I be shocked if it doesn't meet this release date? No, I'm not going to be shocked. But the fact that they did announce a release date like this, it does seem to show that maybe they are taking steps towards actually making this movie, and maybe it will, maybe it will actually come out in summer 2021. We're gonna have to wait and see how that turns out. As well as the announcement of the Batman, we also got word of the Suicide Squad sequel, or I guess it's just being called The Suicide Squad, which is why terrible title for a sequel. I mean, maybe they're trying to like do like a semi reboot or something, but it's actually the only title for a sequel that's worse than this is the Halloween sequel, the one that just came out last year, which was just called Halloween. That's not a great title for a sequel, naming it the exact same thing as the first one. Because now it's like, oh yeah, I love Halloween, and I love its sequel, Halloween. And this is pretty much like as close to that as you can get with, oh, I love Suicide Squad, and I love the sequel, The Suicide Squad. Yay. I mean, maybe they are trying to do like a semi reboot, and this is their way because they didn't want to call it Suicide Squad 2 because it's not really going to be a sequel to the first one. I don't know what they're planning. But I think if it is a sequel, like a real sequel, The Suicide Squad is a stupid title. DC has not been on top of their titles lately. The Birds of Prey title, the full Birds of Prey title, which I'm not even going to say on this live stream, awful. They have not been on a roll with their titles lately. But regardless, The Suicide Squad, it's coming out. They have a date, August 6th, 2021, so just a couple months after the Batman, and James Gunn will be directing it, writing and directing. I absolutely hate the 2016 Suicide Squad movie. I thought it was a complete train wreck of a film. It literally, by the end of the movie, like once we were in the third act, I was literally getting a headache watching the movie because of how terrible the editing was and how choppy it was. I don't know if I've ever gotten a headache from a movie like I did for Suicide Squad when I watched it. That movie's atrocious. So I was never interested in a Suicide Squad sequel at all. But you know what's the way to get me to be interested in a Suicide Squad sequel? Is if you announce James Gunn, the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, who should have done Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, in my opinion, is going to be doing Suicide Squad, the sequel, or The Suicide Squad. That gets me interested. That gets me excited. Or excited is not the right word, because I'm not necessarily like have enthusiasm for this movie at all. But you piqued my interest. I was dead set, like I wouldn't even have seen it probably if it was someone else. If they were like, oh, David Ayer's returning. You know, God help us if David Ayer was returning for this film. He's not on a roll himself. But, you know, anyone else, I probably wouldn't have even gone and seen it in the theaters. That's how much I hated the first Suicide Squad movie. But then you say James Gunn is coming in to do it. Now you've actually got me somewhat interested. Now you've actually got me saying, you know what, I might actually have to go see this movie, and I might have to see it with an open mind and look at the trailers with an open mind. I think it's funny because Suicide Squad, DC doing Suicide Squad was almost their answer to Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. They were trying to go for a similar kind of thing and capitalize on the success of this kind of oddball property that Marvel had done. And they were trying to do that with Suicide Squad. So it's interesting that they're actually bringing on the writer director of Guardians of the Galaxy to do Suicide Squad. If anything, I think Marvel's looking at this and thinking, damn, we should have kept James Gunn. It was a mistake to fire James Gunn, and it was a mistake, I will say. After everything's said and done, they should not have fired him, especially considering. All right, here's something I don't get. Different studios, different scenarios, but I just want to pose a question. How is it the Bryan Singer, who raped people, gets to keep his job directing Red Sonja over, I think it's at Fox, or maybe it's a different studio now because Fox is being bought by Disney or whatever. He gets to keep that job, but James Gunn wrote 10-year-old tweets that had already apologized for and was never trying to hide. And he loses his directing job for Guardians of the Galaxy. That doesn't make sense. Now, different studios, so it's not a fair comparison. But that doesn't sit right with me. I don't think James Gunn should have lost his job for what happened, especially since he apologized. Apologized beforehand, and he apologized again. And it just, I don't know. I don't want to get into the whole thing because it's a polarizing issue and a divisive issue. But all that to say, I personally don't think James Gunn should have lost his job for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But I'm glad the guy's working again. And it's cool that he's going to be doing a comic book movie again. And I'm interested to see what he does with something like Suicide Squad. So the fact that he is doing it and it's coming out 2021, I'm going to go into it with an open mind. And we'll see what happens with that. So something unique to the Thursday live stream of Film Thoughts with Nathaniel Molnar is on Thursdays, I'm going to be talking about the movies opening in theaters this coming weekend. Of course, it won't make much sense to do that on Sunday or Tuesday, so I'm going to do that on Thursday, and I'll probably talk about box office. Sorry about that. I'll probably end up talking on Sunday about box office results, just because why not? So there's really only one big notable film opening up in theaters this weekend, and that's Arctic with Mads Mikkelsen. And I never really heard about this movie until I saw the trailer. And the trailer is really interesting. Does it look like a paint-by-numbers survival film? Yes. Have we seen this movie about 1,000 times? Yes. But it still looks really good. It does. I think it looks really good. I think Mads Mikkelsen looks fantastic in it. I love these kinds of films, these survival movies. Can they be formulaic? Can they be paint by the numbers? Yes, absolutely they can. I'm not denying that at all. But they look interesting to me. And when they're done right, they can be incredibly compelling. And really, it takes a strong performer and a gifted writer and director to make these movies work. Because you're working with usually one performer and minimal dialogue. It's all action driven. And for you to keep the audience engaged and interested for 90 minutes or 2 hours with minimal dialogue and one character, and it's all action driven and it all relies on action, that takes a lot to really pull it off and make it work. That takes a lot of skill. And so if they can pull it off, and I don't know what let me look it up real quick. I'm curious what the Rotten Tomatoes score is for Arctic. Because I remember I heard it got good reviews. I just don't know what it was. Arctic, 86%. That's pretty good. 86% is very good. I don't know. I'm curious how many reviews that is. Oh, I'm assuming if it's opening this weekend, it has to have a good amount. Okay, so 35 reviews, 30 of them fresh, 5 of them rotten. Average rating 7 out of 10. By the way, when you're looking at Rotten Tomatoes, always look at the average rating too. Always a few things to take in mind or keep in mind when you're looking at Rotten Tomatoes. And this is a little side tangent on Rotten Tomatoes. One, know that it's not a score. It's telling you how many of the people who wrote reviews that Rotten Tomatoes have gathered the reviews for Of the people who wrote the reviews and gave this film a score, how many of them gave it a fresh rating, which is above 60%? That's what the number is. It isn't Rotten Tomatoes giving it a score. It's telling you what percentage of critics gave it a fresh review. So that is what the actual thing is. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Thing to keep in mind as well, always check how many reviews they are. Because just like what we're talking about with Alita Battle Angel, it's a 33% right now. And you can say, oh, Alita Battle Angel has a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. But also, asterisk, keep in mind 15 reviews, because that number can change. Just like if I'd gone around saying, Triple X Return of Xander Cage has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie's awesome. People are loving it. 15 reviews ends up being in the 40s. So always keep in mind that the number that you're given on Rotten Tomatoes is a percentage of how many of the critics like the movie, not an actual rating given by Rotten Tomatoes. Keep in mind to always look at how many reviews there are. And also, you don't have to, but it's always good. I like to look at the average rating as well, because it will tell you what is the average actual rating that the critics gave it. So, because one of the well, it's not a fault, but it's something that not everyone keeps in mind about Rotten Tomatoes, is that a movie may have a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, but that does not mean that every single critic gave it an A rating. A movie could have 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. That just means that 98% of the critics give it a positive review. They could have given it, every single critic, every single one of those 98% of the critics could have given it a 61% on Rotten Tomatoes. So everyone might have thought, yeah, it's an average movie. I mean, I gave it a fresh review, but it's average. Everyone gives it a 61% or 6 out of 10 or 5.5 out of 10 or whatever it may be, but it has a 98%. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. Always also look at the average rating. So the average rating is a 7 out of 10. So, that's not, if you looked at 86% on Rotten Tomatoes and you think, hey, that's a B, that's pretty good. Or is that actually B plus? I don't remember exactly. So, 86%, that's pretty good. But then you also have to look at the average rating. People give it a 7 out of 10, which is more like a 70, which is a C. So always keep that in mind when you're looking at Rotten Tomatoes. So let's go back. So Arctic is one of the movies opening this weekend. We also have Miss Paula, which looks okay. I don't think the movie's very good, and it's got a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'm gonna apply my own logic. Yeah, see? Okay, 39 reviews, average rating is 4.9 out of 10. So actually, that is just below. So even though it has a 33%, the actual ratings that people are giving it are just below the fresh rotten line. So Miss Paula, I didn't think it looked that great. I mean, maybe it could be a serviceable action movie, but it didn't look like anything that great. So I'm not going to go see Miss Paula. Velvet Buzzsaw opens on Netflix with Jake Gyllenhaal and directed by Dan Gilroy. That looks really interesting. I'll probably end up watching that on Netflix. Arctic, I would like to see, but I don't know if I'm actually realistically going to go see that in theaters. And They Shall Not Grow Old also goes wide this weekend, I believe. And that is the Peter Jackson World War I documentary, which looks phenomenal. The amount of work that went into restoring this World War I footage with sound, because they didn't have synchronized sound then. To have the sound and to have the color and to restore it, footage that's over 100 years old, and make it look pristine. Literally, when you watch the trailers, the footage that they show of what they've done to restore it, it looks like it's from the 60s. It looks like what an average movie from the 60s would look like. But it's actually early 20th century. The restoring in that looks phenomenal. That is a movie. I don't know if I'll necessarily go to the theaters to see it, but it is a documentary I do want to see at some point. So anyways, just to round that off, opening this weekend, Miss Paula has a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. They Shall Not Grow Old is coming out. It has a 98% Rotten Tomatoes. Arctic is coming out, 86%. Velvet Buzzsaw has a 71%. Of those, I am most interested in Arctic. I'll probably end up seeing Velvet Buzzsaw just because it is Netflix. So Uh, let's take a look at what is going on in the live chat, answer some live questions. Uh, Rob Jaginta, what's up, man? Arctic does look good. It does look good. I'm I'm interested in this movie. I like the trailer. Again, it looks like it could be paint by the numbers. It looks like it's pretty formulaic, but I think if done right, it could be really good. I don't think it's anything we're going to remember in 10 years or anything like that, but it looks good. I'm interested in seeing. It's limited. I'm assuming that would mean that you're referring to the Peter Jackson documentary, They Shall Not Grow Old. All right, I don't know how many theaters it is, but limited release. Hopefully, it's playing somewhere near you. Trailer review for Little Bobby and the Juice. um, for those of you who don't know, over on the Schmoes Know show, I don't know if they even still do the show, but anyways, with the showdown, there's this character Bobby Finstock, and he did this movie or show. Actually, I thought it was a movie, but it's actually a limited show that they're trying to sell to Adult Swim called Little Bobby and the Juice. Look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen the trailer. It looks pretty out there. So I don't know how it's gonna be, but it looks pretty out there. Uh, Most likely when the Rotten Tomatoes comes out, it usually goes down from where it started. Doubt Alita rises. Yeah. So like I was saying, the number that we see isn't the definitive number. Case in point, triple X. Now, usually does it go down? Yes, I've seen it go up before. I've seen a movie start out like in the 40s and go up to the 60s or 70s. So it just all depends upon which critics see it initially and first get the reviews in so that we have that aggregated number, and then who sees it later and what reviews and what order they all come in. It all depends. Most times the number will go down from where it starts, most times, but that's not a foregone conclusion. So Alita, most likely, either it will stay where it is or it will go down a little bit, but there is a chance it goes up. Again, I don't think it's likely at all that it's going to be end up in like the 60s or 70s. Is there the possibility? Sure, there's the possibility. I don't think it's likely at all, but I think it's probably going to stay around where it is. But it could go up a little bit. It could end up in the 40s. So, also looks like puppy poo. I'm assuming you're referring to Lolita. Yes, it does not look good. Um, what's your favorite dog from a movie? Mine's the one from John Wick who died. Uh, yeah, well, that's a great. I'd say I don't know if that's my favorite dog in a movie, but that's one of the best uses of a dog in a film because that dog is the entire emotional hook of the film. If it's not for that dog, and sorry, spoilers if you haven't seen John Wick, but I'm sure even if you haven't heard of it, you know this is what happens. The dog dies, and that sets everything up. It gives the audience can completely sympathize and empathize with John Wick as a character. It's a great way to get the audience behind a mass murderer like John Wick, and it gives the character complete drive going forward to uh, do what he's going to do. It's a great setup for a film. In the same way that Taken has a very simple setup of the bad guys kidnap Liam Neeson's daughter, and now Liam Neeson has to go get the bad guys. It's a very simple plot device. Kill the guy's dog, the guy's going to go get revenge. Very simple plot device, but it's so effective. So I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite dog as like a character, but it's one of the best uses of a dog in a film. I will say without a doubt. And as for a favorite dog, I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, that's kind of because dogs don't really have personalities in films. I mean, in real life they do, but not in films really captured in any sort of way. And dog movies that we get, like A Dog's Purpose or what the fuck was the one that just came out a couple months ago? Dog's Way Home or Dog, and then there's Dog's Journey coming out. God, why are there so many fucking dog movies? I don't want to see any more of these. I think I went on a tangent on that like the last episode, but it bears repeating. Stop with these dog movies. Stop. We get the point. We get it. Maybe Marley and Me is one of my favorite dogs. I don't know. Um, but anyways, yeah, I love dogs and I love seeing them in the movies. Um, let's see. uh, Seeing Miss Paula on Saturday looks like ass. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think it looks atrocious or terrible or anything like that. I don't think it looks particularly good. It kind of looks like it just looks like it could be a standard conventional action movie. Nothing very exciting, nothing too new, but it just gets the job done. It's just whatever. I mean, we've seen so many just typical conventional action movies in years past. We've seen so many of those. Uh, I don't know if this necessarily looks like it's a poorly made movie. It just probably looks like nothing that's anything extraordinary. So I'm not going to be seeing it myself. Sounds like you're going to see it. You'll have to let me know what you think of Miss Bala. I think I'm going to see Stan and Ollie. That one looks really good. I don't know if it's playing near me here. I hope it is, but I really want to see that one. I haven't seen a trailer for it. But again, I love old Hollywood. And this harkens back to old Hollywood films. Of course, you got John C. Reilly in there, and I forget the other guy who's playing. I think John C. Reilly is playing Ollie. I forget who's playing Stan. But regardless, the movie looks really good. I've heard a lot of great things about it. That's one I really would like to see. Also, Free Solo is in theaters. Looked good. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Free Solo. Nothing to do with Solo Star Wars story, but Free Solo I've heard good things about. Where's the review for Dragon Ball Super Broly? I am waiting. Considering I don't give two shits about Dragon Ball Z, you're never gonna get your review. Maybe it's great. I've heard good things from people who like Dragon Ball Z. People have been raving about this animated film. I've never watched Dragon Ball Z. I've never particularly cared about Dragon Ball Z, so I won't see this film. Maybe, and just maybe, someday in my life, I will decide, you know what? I want to be a Dragon Ball Z fan. And I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch all Dragon Ball Z. And eventually I will end up watching Dragon Ball Z Super Broly. And then I'll have seen the film, but you won't get a review. When a goldfish here, when a good goldfish here. That's a line from the Little Bobby and whatever. I don't even remember the name of it anymore. The thing I was just talking about. What is a velvet buzzsaw? I think it's a buzzsaw that is the color. Is velvet a color? I just assumed. Maybe I'm thinking of violet. Velvet. Wait. Okay. I think velvet is a texture. Maybe I don't know. But that's a good question. I don't know. I think it's like an art house picture or something like that. So, anyways, I'm excited about that movie because I like Dan Gilroy. He did Nightcrawler, and we've got Jake Gyllenhaal back in there, Rene Russo back in there. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. I'll watch anything he's in. So I don't know anything really about the movie other than it's about art and an artist or something like that, and the team behind it. That's all I need to know. I'm looking forward to it. I was talking about Arctic when you said limited. Oh, okay. Sorry. Arctic is limited? I did not know that. I thought it was wide release. That's too bad because now I probably won't get a chance to see it, even though I probably wouldn't have seen it anyways. Some of these I can't say. Oh, okay, here we go. What's your least favorite movie theater experiences? I have a ton. Mine was when my grandma took me and her boyfriend to the movies. They made out in front of me the whole time. Oh, the grandma and her boyfriend were making out. That's a new one. That's great. That is a great story. Sometime, and I'd love to. If you don't know, Rob Jaginta is a frequent co-host of this show. Rob, speaking to you directly, at some point, I would love to do a live stream or a show where we just talk about some of the craziest shit that we've seen in movie theaters. because the two of us have experienced some of the craziest stuff. Um, Basically, anytime the movie is just quiet and people are talking, I hate it. The Visit was horrible. That was a terrible one because behind us, and this happens with any sort of PG-13 horror movie, there was like literally the entire row behind us, entire row of the movie theater was filled with teenagers, boys and girls, and they were just talking and laughing and chatting and causing all this ruckus the entire movie. I could barely focus on the movie. I had not seen The Visit since the theaters. Maybe that contributed to the reason why I don't like The Visit. Maybe I should watch the movie again and maybe I'll like it. But that was a terrible one. There's been a lot of funny things, like moments that are just like so weird and like you would never in a million years expect anything like that to happen. Like I forget what movie we were seeing, but the trailer for Black Hat played, and this was a few years back. And there was a lot of like flashing lights in the trailer. And somebody in the theater stood up and yelled at the top of their lungs, "They shouldn't show that trailer! Somebody might have epilepsy!" I was just like, what in the fuck? It was and now anytime I watch a trailer in a theater that has like flashing lights, all I can think of is that. So I mean I've had some very bad movie theater experiences. I've had a lot more just strange stories and funny things that have happened during movies. But probably The Visit, that was probably like the single worst movie theater experience. All right. Moving along. If I Venmo you $5, will you do film thoughts with an accent and or uh I think you mean no shirt on. Um the shirt one I'll have to think about. Fuck it, I'd do an accent. For $5? The whole show or like a portion of the show? Eh, $5 is $5. I mean, that's more I'm making off of this channel anyways, so you and I can talk about that and we can come to some sort of arrangement. Uh what is your favorite food to eat during the movies? I myself am a fan of raw onions. Keeps people from sitting next to you because you smell like ass. Yeah, that's a good system. Although it's hard when it's reserved seating now because people will just they'll sit next to you anyways. Raw onions. That's a good way to get rid of people. Favorite movie theater. So for a long time, Red Mike and Ike's was my go-to snack. I like candy with my movies. Uh, I will eat popcorn from time to time. I never used to be for a long time. I did not like popcorn with my movies at all. I just was not a popcorn fan. I'd had like a bad experience with popcorn years and years ago, and it just kind of I just didn't like the movie, or I didn't like the taste of popcorn at all. So I never got popcorn. In the last year or so, I've turned around on popcorn, and now on occasion, if on my AMC app I have some rewards, so I don't have to spend the money out of pocket to get some popcorn, I will get some popcorn for a big movie. But I don't usually get popcorn. Um, so Red Mike and Ike's was my go-to for a while. Now I don't immediately go to Red Mike and Ike's. It depends. Like sometimes I'll get snow caps, Swedish fish. I used to get Whoppers, but then I got sick of Whoppers. I've been trying to not get candy as much for movies as just a way to cut down on candy in general. I've gotten a couple of like protein bars or something for movies. I got this really good one that was like coconut and oats or whatever. It was really good. It might have been like a Kind bar or something like that. So that was good. But yeah, usually if I'm in a movie theater, some sort of candy or something. If I'm at home, bowl of goldfish. I love goldfish. Honestly, if movie theaters sold goldfish, I would buy it. Like if they just sold like how they sell popcorn, but they sold goldfish, I would totally get it because I love eating goldfish with movies. Um, let's keep going. What do you love more, old Hollywood or old women? Old Hollywood. Um, Steve Coogan is the man. Is is the man's name from Stan and Ollie. Yeah, so Steve Coogan. Thank you. I was blanking on who was playing Stan in that movie. Uh, we were seeing The Gambler. Oh, I think this was in reference to the epilepsy story. Yes. So it was The Gambler, which was 2014, and Black Hat came out in January of 2015. So yes, that would make sense. That is a great movie. Nobody talks about The Gambler. It's I'm sure if you're listening, you've never even heard of it. My guess. Mark Wahlberg, John Goodman. There's a couple other people, but I forget who they are. That's one I have not seen since I saw it in theaters. That was a really good movie. And again, nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about that movie. It deserved to be talked about more. I'll have to watch that again. That's one I need to watch again. I never trust a man who doesn't like popcorn. My stepdad, Jerry, hates popcorn. He's awful. I miss my real daddy. I know for a fact you don't have a stepdad named Jerry. So I know that's bullshit. But yeah, if you that's honestly that's not a terrible life philosophy. Don't trust someone who doesn't like popcorn. So for about 20 or so years you shouldn't have trusted me, which I'm sure you didn't anyways. Uh You're a gambler to me, mate. Name's Nathaniel. You got nothing to lose, and you always risk it all. You're dangerous. I am a dangerous man. I really am. I'm the most dangerous man there is. And whenever I play poker, I do always go all in. I take my chips and I put them all in. And usually I lose. But that does not change the fact that I am indeed a dangerous man. I don't know where that came from. I just channeled something there. But yeah, that's going to I wow. We are running at 51 minutes. I think I have got to get going. Chips or batteries? I don't really even know. Like potato chips? Or like a chip that you put in something in place of a battery? I don't know. Anyways, we're at 52 minutes. I'm going to have to sign off here. I've got some shit to do. I have not eaten dinner yet, and it is 10 o'clock at night here. I should go eat some dinner. So, anyways, thank you for joining us for another installment of Film Thoughts with Nathaniel Molnar live. Once again, I am your host, Nathaniel Molnar. Thank you so much for joining us for this live show. Film Thoughts is live every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure to join us for those live shows and participate in the live chat because I love being able to take live questions from you guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe for more content, and follow us on all of our various social medias at Movie Paradise 99. And until Sunday, when we do the next installment of Film Thoughts, thank you for joining.